Hello, audience. How are you guys doing? You can just confirm me in the chats that we have started properly and we are clearly audible and visible to you. Just confirm me in the chats. You can say hi there. Let's see how many people have joined. Hello. Hello, guys. Okay. In the chats, please. Can you tell me if we are live? Okay. All right. So we will let me just brief you about the session that we are going to be having. As a part of our Geek-O-Lympics month, which we are having for this whole July, we are coming up with different events and different sessions, quizzes, and giveaways, and a whole lot of things for you guys. So for this month, Geek-O-Lympics, this is a new day with a new topic for a new session we are here. And in this video, we'll be talking about how we can, like how we can present the data in a very beautiful manner. All right, and what do you mean by that? We always hear like we have to work upon data analysis and data sciences and trend, and we have quite a view about if we are talking about data, we are talking about big Excel sheets, or we are talking about Python scripts and different things. But once we have worked upon the data, once we have gotten the information, what is the proper way of presenting it, right? You cannot just show big slide, big data bases or big Excel sheets to the customers or to a person who might not be able to get it, right? So just for delivering the information in a very better manner, in an explanatory manner, we use an approach of data storytelling. And for that, we do have an expert with us here. So Syed Muzamil is here for taking this session. He is going to be proceeding further. He is a full stack engineer and wealth hub and brings years of experience in the industry. And he'd be talking about how we are going to be seeing the art of storytelling. All right, Sayed. So audience is here. Hello, Sayed. How are
Yeah,
you?
yeah, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm also doing
I hope
fine.
I'm audible.
Yes, you are, and to the audience as well, you
Yeah,
are audible, right? Audience, you
great.
can feel free to comment in the live. We are here to interact. All right. So before proceeding, you can give a hi. You can say hello to Sayed. Okay.
Yeah, hi
We'll be proceeding
everyone.
now.
Okay, great. Hi
Okay.
everyone. I hope there are people there. Okay,
Yeah.
great. So, hi everyone. I am Said Muzamil. I am a full stack developer or engineer, you can say, at WealthUp, where I just work. So, it's a fintech company where I just work on just building different kinds of things there. We also just do some sort of, you can say, this data analytics part as well there, where we just provide some charts and different kinds of things to the people, and they will know using those charts they will properly know what is happening with their investments and different kinds of things, right? So as also you might have already seen the title of this video. It is about data storytelling. So in this session we'll be just talking about what data storytelling is and why is it important, and we'll just go through different things, different sections in this video, and we'll be just giving you overview of data storytelling as well properly. I think I'll just start by sharing my screen. So since I also see people there, so
Yes.
just give me a
Sure.
moment. I'll just um, share this thing. Yeah. Let me know if you can see my screen. Okay, cool. So yeah. Okay. So yeah, we'll be just going through what data storytelling is. We'll just talk about the basics first, okay, and then we'll be just moving on and just exploring some other things in data storytelling. Let me just go to the next slide. Okay. So first of all, we'll talk about what data storytelling is. So data storytelling, it's a concept actually of building, compiling narrative based on complex data. So that means if we have some sort of data, complex data, because if we provide that data to the audience, to the particular audience that we want to show this data to, they will not be able to understand it properly because there will be these numbers everywhere. They will not be able to understand what is going on, right? So, in order to give the proper insights, in order to just tell them a proper story about these numbers, what is going on, so we just use this concept of data storytelling, where we just convert this data into proper structures. We just analyze this data, just provide them with proper charts. We just tell them what is going on with these kinds of things, so that people will properly understand what is going on, right? Because if we will just provide them with the numbers, they won't know what is going on. They will just leave it there, and nobody is going to care about those numbers, right? So, so we just need to properly communicate with the end user that what this data is all about, what it is telling us, right? So, what we'll do in data storytelling is we just get some sort of data, where let's say we have huge data sets. We just want to we just want to show the user what's going on with this data, or let's say we have some sort of users. So if I'll talk about in Wealth Hub how we do these things, so we have some sort of data for investments. Like users made some investments on different kinds of different kinds of companies. They invested their stocks. They have mutual funds, right? We now want to show the people that what this data is all about, right? Because there will be a lot of numbers associated with those investments, but people usually don't understand them, right? So what actually happens there is we just try to compile that data, just try to make it in the simplest form, so that the end user could properly understand what is going on with their things, right? So we'll be continuing this in just upcoming section as well. Just we'll just move on with the next section first. Why data storytelling is important. Okay. So what is the importance of data storytelling? So because if we'll see data storytelling, it plays a crucial role in data-driven decisions, right? Because we have lots of data. We just want to analyze that data, right? In order to make proper decisions, right? So that is something we need in order to do different types of decisions, in order to do different kinds of things on the basis of that particular data. So if we cannot analyze the data properly, if we cannot just give the insights on that data properly, we are not going to make proper decisions, right? And it also helps us, it also helps people to understand proper different kinds of things easily, because when the data, it usually is complex, so people should be able to understand, they should be able to grasp that data properly, right? So what actually we do with this data storytelling is we just compile that complex data into simplest forms, and so that people could properly understand it, right? So just like I told about you the investments, because that could be complex data at certain points where there will be a lot of numbers associated with your investments. So we just want a way where we can just give the people that insights, that graphs, where people can easily understand what's going on. Okay. So that is one thing that is important in there. Also, in order to make different kinds of decisions on the basis of data, we just make properly graphs. Let's say there are some salesperson, they have lots of data sets, right? In order to make some predictions, in order to make some decisions based upon that data, what should they do? They are going to analyze the data. They are going to make some certain graphs, right? They will be just telling people we are doing this thing, then we are getting that much of sales from these kinds of things. They will be just creating different kinds of graphs for that, right? And based upon those graphs, they will then try to create a story, right? And then they will tell that kind of story, that if we are getting this number of people from that thing, then we will just continue there, right? So that is where the data storytelling is going to be important. Now, if we will see, since this is just the introduction, we are just going with the introduction. We'll also try to explain things later on in this video. Let's now dive into some of the components that data storytelling has, right? As I already told you, that data storytelling, we just need to break down that complex information, break down that complex data into simpler one. Like we just need to convert that into simpler form so that the end user can understand it properly, right? So in order to tell a data story, we just have some components there. As you can see on the screen, there are three components basically: data visualization, narrative, and context. Okay. Now let's talk about what data visualization is. Let's say we have some sort of data where we like, because they will all be numbers, and if we'll just show the numbers to the end audience, right, the people, that particular audience we want to show that kind of data, they won't be able to understand it properly, right? Because there are only big numbers, they are just there would be only numbers, and they won't be able to understand that thing properly, right? So that's where this data visualization comes in. So this data visualization involves the representation of data in the form of charts, graphs, right? So first of all, what we do is when we want to tell a story about, so this data story involves this data visualization. We'll just first of all complex that complex data will be converted into simpler forms, and then based upon that particular data, we'll just form different kinds of charts, which will be simplistic, clear, right? So simplistic means that these visually simple data, that complex data which we have just made simple, and we have just made graphs out of that, it will be easily digestible by the end user, right? Because when we talk about graphs, people usually tend to understand them easily than the numbers, right? So we'll just properly make those charts, we'll just label them, we'll just make different kinds of colors with different kinds of sections of the charts, so that people can easily understand what is going on, right, with those charts. Once those charts are done, because we'll be just making different kinds of patterns with the data, which will just make this visual patterns, right? And there will be this relationship between the data that will be properly shown in the form of these charts, so that people can properly understand what is going on, right? After those charts are done, we just need to go through with the narrative, like the narrative which involves crafting and like engaging this story around the data, right? We just need to create the story around that data. Okay. And in order to like create this story around that data, there are different things involved in there, like what should be the structure of the data, right? So we first of all need to organize the data and insights logically in a coherent manner, so that we can just properly provide the story to the audience, right? So it should be a logical story where we should be properly just making this data in a proper format, where we can just after like creating these visual graphs. So what we'll be doing is we'll be just crafting a story around that data, right? Because we want to tell people what is going on with the data. After they have seen the charts, they will be able to understand what's going on, because charts are properly like they also have colors, so they are beautifully they are appealing to the user's eye, so they will be able to understand what is going on with those charts, right? And based upon that, we then need to provide some sort of story which will be engaging to the end user, right? So it should be an engaging story which will provide to the user. So that is the second part, which is the narrative. And then the third part, which is the context. So when let's say we are just creating a chart without any labels, it wouldn't make any sense, right? We have a pie chart, we have a bar chart, they don't have any labels, there are just simple rectangular bars, but they are not telling us anything, because there is no label there, right? So context means we just need to effectively properly label those things, right? What is what this type of bar is all about, this type of chart is all about, so that people would understand. So this thing is going with the sales, this thing is going with investments, this thing is going with some other thing, right? So that people would understand which label, which data is associated with which label, right? So that they will properly know what is going on with that kind of things, right? So basically there are these data storytelling has these basic three components, which is data visualization, narrative, and context. Okay, so these are the main things when you are going to tell a story about some sort of data. So you need to understand first of all that you need to visually present the data to the end audience, so that they could like properly understand what is going on, right? because if you will just provide them with the big numbers, huge numbers, they won't be able to know what is going on with this data, right? That's where this data visualization comes into play, because this will tell the end user that this is the graph for a particular thing, and this is how it is just moving up and down, and what is going on with this thing, right? After you just make those charts, you just create a story around that data, that this we are seeing. Let's say we have a sales chart, right, where we have a graph, or we can say bar graph or pie chart, whatever there is, where a particular in a particular month there are, like, let's say 1,000 people are buying something. In another month, let's say there are only 50 people buying something, right? And using that chart, we can just create a story that on a particular month more people are buying this kind of thing, right? So we can just derive some information from that chart, that these people are buying more things at that particular month. So we'll just get that insight from that thing, and we can tell people about this: you should invest or you should buy at this month, because maybe the price would be low or some other things, right? So when we are telling a particular story, we just need to know all these components in order to, like, properly tell a story. Okay. So now, if we will move on with the next thing in the data storytelling, what is the power of data storytelling, right? Why is it important? What are the components? And finally, just this power of data storytelling, right? So if we'll see this data storytelling, its power is, first of all, influencing stakeholders, right? So if we'll present a story in a proper way, in a proper format, it could influence the stakeholders. It could just influence how we are making the predictions on this data, right? So how the data is presented, so that different kinds of people will understand what is going on with the data, right? So they will also know what is going on, and how it will, like, impact different kinds of things, right? Because the data should have when we have a proper data, we just want to present to different kinds of people, different kinds of audience, so that we could just we need a proper way to do that, right? So with the help of this data storytelling, we just so what we do is, we just we just influence the stakeholders by just providing this data in a proper format, in a like storytelling manner. We just influence stakeholders that what is going on with this thing, so that they can just make proper decisions based upon the data that we provided in a proper format. So using this data storytelling, you can also see the power is that it just clears the understanding of end user, right? Because if we have only the numbers and we will just present to different kinds of people, or we will just provide those numbers to the end user, they won't be able to understand what is going on, because they don't know what is happening with those numbers, right? And then when we will be providing this data in a storytelling manner, they will be able to grasp this clearly, right? They would know what is going on with this data. When they will see proper visualizations of this data, they will properly understand the context of this data. They will try to just see what's going on with this data and what we should do about these things, right? As earlier I gave you example of the investments. Let's say people are investing in some let's say some you can say some companies, or they are investing somewhere. So when we just provide them with the data that this is happening with this company in this visual manner, and then we just narrate the story around that if you are going to invest this much amount of money for this period of time, so you will not be able to get the returns back, right? So that is when we tell the people story about the data, that we have got the data, but we just need to provide this data in a proper format, so that you can understand what you need to do with this thing, right? So the power of data storytelling, it's very very important, that you can just influence different kinds of people, that with the help of that data, right? So so this is the basic introduction of these data storytelling, what data storytelling is, what are the components of data storytelling, and the power of data storytelling. So That means if somebody has some sort of data and they want to make certain insights, certain things out of that data, they should make proper adjustments to the data first in order to tell the proper story. So before just telling a story about the data, people should be able to understand what the data is all about, right? Because if I am going to tell the story about some sort of data, let's say I have some sort of data which I don't have any knowledge of, right? How can I just tell people what is going on with this data, right? So before you just tell story about some sort of data, you should know what the data is, right? So what the data is about, why is it important, we'll be just talking about that, because data is the crucial part of this storytelling, right? Because if you don't understand what data is, where the data is coming from, what I need to do with this data, you are not going to tell the story, right? Because if let's just first of all see why the data is important, right? And then we'll just go on with other things, right? How you can just clean the data, and then you tell the story about that data, right? First of all, data should be understanding the data is important. Why it is important? Because when you first of all know what the data is about, what the data is, then you are going to tell the story about it, right? As I already told you that let's say there are two people, or there is one person who only knows about certain types of data, right? Let's just, as I already mentioned about the investments part, I will just continue with that. Let's say I know some things about investment data, right? What is going on, what this thing is about, because investments also has a lot of things, right? There is the return, there is the price, there is the current price, right? There are different kinds of things with that investment, that particular investment, right? So before you try to create a story on that data, you should be able to understand this data, right? In order to tell the story, if the data is accurate or if it is not accurate, right? Because let's say I have some sort of data which is not accurate, and now I'm going to tell people about people's stories about this data, that I have this kind of data. Now I have just cleaned the data. I have just trying to tell a story about. Let's say, as I already mentioned about the investments. Let's say I have some sort of investment data, but I don't know if it is accurate, and I'm going to tell people that you should not invest there because you will not get proper returns, right? But I don't know if it is accurate or not. If it is not accurate, then I'm just telling people the wrong stories, right, about this data. So before you tell the story, first of all you need to understand the data, that if it is accurate, if it is reliable or not, right? After you know that it is accurate, you should able to get the meaningful insights out of that data, right? Understanding the data also allows you to extract meaningful insights, right? So when you are able to understand the proper data, this data format properly, you should be able to grasp that, you should be able to extract insights, proper insights out of that data, that what is going on with this thing and what I can get out of this data, right? I will again give you the example of investments. Let's say I have some sort of investment data for past 3 months or past 1 year, 2 year. Now I am going to make decisions based upon that data, because I know that is accurate. I will be able to get the insights out of that data, right? So I'll be trying to see if this investment has been doing good for past 3 months. Then I'll be able to make the investment based upon that data, right? So that means the data is accurate. Now I can able to get proper insights out of that data, right? Once you are able to get the proper insights out of that, you can just because you need to tell the story, so it should be relevant to that the data should be relevant to that story, right? Now as I am still mentioning about the investments part, so the thing is, if I have this data about investments and I have another some sort of data that's about sales, right? So I should know that this data, I only need to tell the story about this investments data, and I just need to understand if that is accurate first. Then I should be able to understand if it is giving the proper insights, right? After that, because I also have the another data, the sales data, I will not be including it in the investments part, right? Because that is not relevant to the story. So I should be able to understand the data that is relevant to the story that I need to tell. I only need to use that data, because I cannot use whatever data will be available there, right? Also, you also need to understand if the data's quality is reliable, if it is reliable data, if you're getting the data from a particular reliable source, right? Because if you are not getting it from reliable source, and if it is not if it has some quality issues, right? then there is no point of using that data, and then you cannot just tell the stories about that data, because you will not be able to know if that is accurate. You will not be able to know if there are any quality issues, right? So understanding the data is the main point in order to tell the insights about what is going on with this kind of data, right? So you should be able to understand the data first in order to tell a story. If you don't know what the data is all about, you can do nothing about this, right? I'll give you an example of this data. So we have some sort of we also get some sort of data for the investments from different kinds of sources, right? But before that, we get the data. We just first of all need to clean the data, what the data is doing, right? We just need to clean all the data, which we'll be talking about in the next section. So we clean the data, then we just interpret what is going on. We just convert them into different kinds of formats, a proper format, so that we can just show the end user the thing that we want to show, right? I'll just show you an example, just a second, like what I am talking about in here. Yeah, here we go. Yeah. If you can see, here are some sort of charts, right, which are showing you different kinds of things. Okay. Basically, what is going on here is we are presenting this data to the end user, right? We are presenting this data like 1 year performance, diversification, alpha or beta. Okay. So user will not be able to understand if we'll provide them the numbers only, right? Because if we'll provide them the numbers, they are just going to tell it what is going on. Now when we have just converted that numbers into a proper format, we have converted it into a proper format like charts. We also gave some narrative about that particular data, that what is going on with this, so that user will be properly able to understand what is going on with this thing, right? So that is important, because when you have data, you also need to clean that data in order to properly understand what is going on, right? So that is the importance, that is why the data, you need to understand the data properly, because there are a lot of importance to that the data should be accurate. It should give meaningful insights. It should be reliable data, right? And there should not be any quality issues with the data, right? Once you have properly understood what the data is about, right, you then need to identify different kinds of things in the data. You need to clean the data properly. It should be in a proper format, so that you can just use that data to create different kinds of charts. You can just use that data. Once you create different kinds of charts in that data, from that data you can then tell people what this is all about, right? Because if you have not cleaned all that data, then what is going on, what will happen is there will be some errors in the data, because there could be different kinds of rows that will be duplicate, right? There could be different kinds of things that could be irrelevant to the story that we are going to tell about, right? So in order to identify and clean, so what I wrote here is determine what specific information and insight you need to support your story, right? So first of all, you need to identify what data you are going to use in order to tell the story. Is it relevant to that story, right? Is it not relevant to that story? So first of all, you need to determine that specific information. That you need to determine the insights that you want to show to the end user, right? Because let's say I have different kinds of data, as I already mentioned you about the investment and sales part. So I have two types of data in here. So I have sales data, I have investments data, but I want to give insights about sales data to a particular audience. So I'm not going to use the investments data in there, right? Because that is irrelevant to that thing. So when we are trying to tell a story, we first of all need to identify the data, right? When you have understood the data, now you need to identify the data that you are going to use in order to tell a particular story to a particular audience, right? Because when you are not going to identify that data that you are going to use, you are just going to make some certain mistakes about that thing, right? Because as I already mentioned you about the investments and the sales data, as I need to tell the story to the sales that a particular audience about the sales data, right? Now I'm not going to mention the investments data there, right? Because it is irrelevant to that thing. So that's why data, you need to determine the specific information, specific insights, specific data that should support that story. Because investments data is not going to support the story that I'm going to tell that particular audience, right? Because I have to tell the particular audience about only and only the sales data, right? So I'm not going to use this investments data because that's irrelevant. So that is just going to make them like they won't be able to understand what is going on with this thing, right? Because it is irrelevant. After that, you also need to understand the potential sources that align with your object, right? So that means you need to understand where the data is coming from, and are those things reliable sources, right? Let's say you are using you have some sort of data in your database, right? So you just need to see if that matches with the story that you are going to tell, right? And then you just need to identify those data sources where the data is going to come in order to tell that story, right? So as I already mentioned, you in order to like create the charts that I already showed you, I'll just show them again to you so that you will just understand properly. Okay, so these charts, because if I since I have determined the specific information that I need to show to the user, right? Now I just need to get the data sources where this data is going to come from, right? So if we see these kinds of charts, this is all about the investment. So I just need different kinds of things in here. So it is not coming from a single source here. So it is coming from different kinds of sources, right? It will be coming from, let's say, Money Control is giving me some sort of data. Different like let's say Yahoo Finance is giving me some sort of data, which then I am just using those data. I'm just combining them, cleaning them, and then I'm just providing the proper thing to the end user that you need to see this. This is what the data is all about. This is what you are getting out from your investments. So what should you do based upon this information, right? When I will provide the end user with this kind of information that your investments are doing worse, your investments are not doing right, and then they will be able to understand what we have to do with our investments, right? Let me go back to this slide. Okay, it's not this one. Okay. So identification is also important in when you are going to tell a story about some sort of data, right? Because you should properly identify which data you need to use, what data you need to use, right? And what are the sources that data should come from, right? After you have got your data, the important thing is to clean the data, right? Because if you have the data in different kinds of formats, there could be errors. So you need to inspect the data. You need to check if there are any errors in the data. You need to check if there are missing values with the data. You need to just first of all, when you understood the data, you identified the data, then you need to clean the data, right? Because that is an important part when you are going to tell the story, when you are going to create the visualizations, you are going to create narratives on that data. So you need to see if the data is correct, if the data is correct or not, right? Because if the data will have some errors, if the data has some missing values, then there is you need to clean those things, right? So that you can then properly create different kinds of things on top of that data. After you have properly checked for those things, you also need to understand if the format is proper, right? If the variable have consistency throughout the data set, right? Because if we have a data set where there's a lot of data, we need to check. Let's say I'll just talk about an Excel sheet where we have a lot of rows, lot of columns. We need to understand if there is any duplicate rows which might cause problems later on, right? If there would be duplicate rows, we'll be just removing those duplicate rows. We'll just remove the irrelevant columns, right? So let's just talk about, we have an Excel sheet where we have let's say 3 rows. One is about name, one is about the investment, and another one is also about investment, right? So the here some sort of name which is irrelevant to the investments, right? Because we don't need that in our data set. So we'll be just removing that column. So we just need to try to clean that data properly. We just need to clean the data in a proper format so that it could be in a proper format, and we can then use that data to make certain kinds of things on top of that, and we can just properly give user the insights about that data, that you here is the data we have. Now we are providing this data in the form of charts, and we are just creating a story on top of that. We are just creating a narrative on top of that, and that is what the end user will see. They will see the charts, they will not see the data, but you still need to clean that in order to give them the proper insights. Okay. Because when we are cleaning the data, we usually perform some data analysis, analytics on top of that, right? So we will just perform exploratory data analysis on top of that. If you don't know what EDA is, then it's actually used by data scientists to analyze and investigate data sets and summarize the main characteristics. Okay. So what we do on top of that data is when we get the data, we try to clean the data. We just use this technique, this EDA technique, where we just try to find the main things. We just try to summarize the data properly, right? We try to visualize the data in the form of charts. That could be a pie chart, that could be bar charts, or that could be just the relationships between them. We just want to summarize the data, what's going on with the data, right? So because that is important, when you clean the data, you should be able to summarize the data. You should be able to create different kinds of charts on top of that data, so that you can just show the people that this is going on with the data, so that people could properly understand that okay, so this is going on with this data. Now users will be able to understand those things properly, right? But if you have not cleaned the data, if you have not analyzed the data properly, then what is going to happen, right? So you just need to understand that if you have not cleaned the data properly, you will not be able to generate different kinds of summaries on top of that, because there will be some irrelevant columns with that, right? But when you just analyze the data properly, you just try to summarize various things on that data. You just also, when you have analyzed that data, there will be some sort of subgroups that or segments within the data that will uncover some unique insights, right? Because there will be different kinds of sections in the data that you will be checking, because when you are analyzing the data, you are trying to create different kinds of graphs. There will be some segments which will just reveal your some kind of unique insights that you can use in order to tell the story to that particular audience, right? So it is really important to understand the data. As I already mentioned you, if you don't understand the data, you don't know what you need to talk about, right? You don't know what people are going to what we are going to tell the people about, because we don't understand the data ourselves. Then we can't tell anyone what is going on with this data, right? So data is really really important in order to tell the story. Okay. There are like different kinds of visualizations in order to like when you are going to create different kinds of visuals in order to tell a story, because you need to create visuals actually. So we'll be just talking about that data visualization, effective data visualization. It has actually a lot of components, so we'll be just talking about some of those things. Okay. First of all, it is simplify complexity. So, what does the data visualization do? As I already showed you the chart, I'll be showing you later on that again as well. So, what that chart does is it just simplifies the complexity, right? So, what it means is when we have this complex data, we then try to simplify that complex data in simpler forms, in easily understandable forms, so that the audience, the end audience, could understand what is going on, right? Because as I already mentioned, that if we'll provide the complex data to the end user, that could be the CSV file, that could be the Excel file with huge numbers, with huge tables and huge columns, they are not going to understand anything, right? So that is where this visualization comes into play. So when we just create this visually appealing these charts, uh, it just simplifies that complexity that is going on, right? It just uh, those that clutterness that will be in the CSV files, that will be in our data. It could be in the form of numbers, CSV, right, or any other form. So it just simplifies that thing, so that and then people can easily, the end audience can easily understand what is going on, right? uh, Also, when you are creating this charts, you should know your audience, right? So that you can visually properly give them the proper visualizations that they need, right? Because if you don't know the audience, you don't know what you need to provide to that audience, right? You should also know the audience in order to provide those proper visual things, right? And how much familiar they are with a particular visualization thing, right? Let's say there could be different kinds of people there, of different kinds of audience, which might some might understand some sort of chart, some might understand some sort of chart, right? So you just need to understand your audience, and then accordingly you just need to give them that kind of charts, right? You can just let's say we have some sort of audience that only understands the bar chart, some audience we have that only understands the pie chart, right? So we just need to understand our audience so that we can just provide the proper insights on the data, and we can just properly give them the proper charts, that proper visualizations that they need to understand. Okay, because that's also important, that you need to choose the appropriate chart for a particular audience, or for a particular data set. You need to choose appropriate charts. Okay, that's really important, because as I already shown you those pie charts, I could not have like created the bar charts there, right? Because that wouldn't have made any sense, right? Because let's say we have six investments, and those six investments, I just need to show from 100% what are making the less returns out of those six investment, right? So I'll be just converting them into the percentage. Then I'll be just telling you that 5% of your investments are doing good, 10% are doing wrong, and the other percent is doing okay. Okay, so that's really important when you are going to visualize the data. Okay, so you just need to understand your audience, and then you just also need to choose the appropriate charts to show to that audience. Okay, so since there are a lot of charts, right? I already mentioned here the bar charts, line charts, pie charts. Okay, these are just a few examples so that you can just give the relationship between different kinds of data sets. Okay, or data that you have. As I'll just give the example again. So some sort of this chart, which is just based upon certain investments. Okay, we have some investments. So if you can see on the first chart, there are two colors. Okay, the 1 year performance. The red color signifies that these number of funds are not doing well. Okay, so that we can just tell the end user that you should just sell those things, because they are just wasting your money, maybe, right? So that is because we are analyzing the data here. We are just we understood what the data is about, right? And now when we understand the data, when we clean the data properly, now we are able to give the audience the proper insight about the data, right? If we would have not understood the data properly, if we don't know what the data is about, if we don't know anything about the data, then we would have not given the end user the proper insights about the data, right? So understand the data is important, as I already mentioned the previous section. And then cleaning the data is also important, because if there will be cluttered data, there will be a lot of other things that we don't need. That would not make sense to the end user. So we just need to clean the data, and then we just need to make the proper visualizations to the end user so that they could properly understand what is going on. Similarly, we just make a narrative on top of that visualization, on top of that data, so that the end user could understand what's going on with the data, right? As you can already see, I don't know if you can see the text below the charts. So it just mentions what is going on, because if we will only give the charts, that will not make them clear what is going on with the charts. So we just make a certain narrative on top of that, that this is going on with your investments, right? Let's say two out of this many investments are not doing well, so you should buy them, right? Certain kind of like analytics we just do on top of the data, to just create a story on top of that data, so that the end audience could understand what is going on, right? After that, let's just okay. So as we were talking about this effective data visualization, so I'll just move on with the maintain data accuracy part here. So when you are visually representing some sort of data, right, it should be accurate, right? You should because if the underlying data is not accurate, the visualization would not be accurate, right? So it also, because if there is incorrect and misleading data, it could it could just mislead the people that this is the wrong data. So you should properly maintain the data accuracy, right? So if the data is accurate, your visualizations will be accurate. You could properly tell the story about that data, right? And after all, you should also, when you are just visually representing some sort of data, you should also label the data properly, right? This data is about this thing, this data is about this thing, right? So that is really important. That is really important. When you are just visually representing the data, you should properly label that, because if you are not going to label the data properly, end user is not going to understand what is going on with this thing. Because if you are not provide a label, then what is going on with the data, user is not going to understand that, right? So you should just maintain the data accuracy. You should just provide the proper contexts with the data, right? So that is all about what data is, what storytelling is, right? Basically, this the data is really important when you are going to tell the story. There are different types of components that you need to understand in order to tell the story. Okay. Now let's move on with this crafting a data story. We'll see how we can just craft a compiling data story. Okay, we'll just talk about this briefly, and then we'll just continue with other things. Okay. So when you are trying to create the when you think of creating a compiling data story, you need to think about what are its elements first, right? Because when you need so how you can tell a compiling data story, it has some sort of elements, right? What is going on with those things? So the first thing is, because first of all, let's talk about why we just want to tell the compiling data story, right? Because if, as you might already know, that almost all the companies, all the organizations have a lot of data, but they don't know how to analyze that data, how to provide the insights on top of data, right? So if they have data but they don't know what to do with that data, how to provide the insights on top of data, then what is the point of using that data, having that data, right? So they should be able to tell the story about that data, that compiling story about that data, that they could just get the insights out of that. They could just make different kinds of decisions, right? Because also, if we'll see, without a compiling data story, the time and money could get wasted, right? Invested in the data models, that would go really waste, right? Because if they are not going to tell a proper story, compiling story, they won't get the insights out of that data, right? As I already showed you those charts, let's say we have some wasted lots of time, lot of money on building those kinds of things. How we got to that point is we just analyzed the data, we just did proper analysis, proper cleaning up with the data, and then we got to that point that we can now show user this particular thing, and they will be able to understand what is going on with those investments, with those things, right? So if you don't know how to properly tell the story, a compiling story, then your data is going waste some sort of, right? Because you cannot make decisions on top of that data, right? So then, in order to tell the story, there are different kinds of things. There are mainly four types. Sorry, there are mainly four elements when you are telling a compiling story. So the first thing is the character, right? So first of all, you need to introduce the stakeholders who are affected by this data, right? You need to make a story uh, to the audience that this data is going to affect this kind of thing, this data is going to affect this kind of thing, right? So you just need to first of all make the some sort of assumption on top of the data that this data is going to affect certain people, right? So you just need to make the character first, and then you just need a setting. So what does the setting mean? As you can already see in the slide, I have just provided some explanation there. Provide context by grounding the story in a specific time, place, and environment. Okay. Explain why achieving goals at this time is significant. We also need to understand why, if we are going to tell the story, why is it important to tell this story now, right? Let me give you an example, real world example right now. Let's say we'll give just an example on this setting. So if you know, recently Meta or in Instagram, we can say they launched the Threads app. So why was the time right now they launched this app? So if you know with the tutor, what is going on with the tutor, right? So tutor, there are some rate limiting going on. There is a lot of other stuff going on. So based upon that data, right? Based upon that data, what is going on with the tutor, like Facebook or Meta, they made some assumptions that this is the right time if we will launch this product. So this is going to do good, right? So that is why this is essential, that you should know what is the proper time for telling a particular story, right? Now, the third part is the conflict. Create a problem or point of tension that resonates with the audience, right? So you just need to create a problem. I will just talk about this our investments part. So we just create a problem there. Let's say we just create a problem that do you know what your investments are doing? Do you know your investments are not doing good, your investments are doing bad, right? We just made some sort of problem there in order to just give the users the insights, in order to give the audience the insights about the data, what's going on, right? So you just need to create a tension so that the end user will get engaged with that story, right? And after that, you also need to resolve that story, show the impact and benefit of solving that problem, right? Let's say, as I gave the example of the investments already. So because when we are telling people about the investments part, right, so they should also be able to understand. First of all, we are creating the tension about, let's say we that this investment is not doing good, this investment is doing bad, right? So this problem, now we need to resolve this problem. So how we are going to resolve this problem, how we are going to tell people that you should sell this thing, right? Because if there is a problem with the investment, user should be able to sell that thing, right? Because that's not good for them, because that is just going to give them loss, right? So we created that problem there, that these things are happening with this thing. Now we need to create a solution on top of that, right? In order to solve that problem. So now we just, based upon certain data, as I already showed you the charts, we are going to give them those insights on the data, that these things are happening with your investments. Okay, now you need to sell those things. Why? Because they are not doing well, they are giving you some loss, right? So that is what is going on, what's happening with the data, right? So that users could easily understand what is going on. So basically, this was almost all about what the storytelling is. This the brief introductions about different kinds of data storytelling, right? What the data is about, or how you are going to create a compiling data story, right? And how I also gave you an example of how we created this compiling data story. Let's give you the example of investments again, where we just you can say use this compiling data story. We just create the character first, because we tell the ad audience it's going to affect you, right? Because this is the story that we are telling about your investment, so this is going to affect your investments. Okay, then what was the right time? When, let's say, we have multiple users, they are uploading the investments cash file to our servers, and now we know that they have investments, right? Now we know that the users, those investments are not doing well. So we thought like this is the right time, we should just create a conflict, we should just create the tension on top of that. So now we just created the tension that there are a lot of investments that are not doing well, you should do something about it, you should do something about it, right? So now the users are in the tension, they are they have a problem that what should we do, what which investments are not doing well, right? Now on top of that problem, we just give them a solution, that we just created this tool where we just analyze different kinds of data. We just then gave them insights on top of that data. As I already showed you this chart, I'll just show that again to you. uh, Here you go. Yeah, as you can see again, as we are giving them the insights that this red part is not doing well, you should just sell them quickly so that you will not go into loss, right? So these kinds of insights, first of all, we just try to find the data, right? We just try to understand the data. Then we also need to do some sort of things like we need to see this data, which people are going to affect this data by, right? Because we need to understand, if we have data, who is this data going to affect, right? After that, we also need to understand what is the right time when we should just create a story on top of the data, right? Because that's also important. We need a proper time when we are going to just give the insights, different kinds of insights on top of that data, right? Then we just create a tension on that this is going on, this is going on. And when that tension is created, we just give a solution on top of that, right? So this is all about storytelling, the data storytelling, right? Just we just talked about what data is all about, why data is important, right? Different kinds of things, we just talked about those things, right? So hopefully, I think you should have understood by now what the data is all about. Now let me just a second. Okay. So as I already mentioned that how much Okay. So as I already told you about the data, what data is about, right? Why data is important. So why you need to understand the data first, right? Because data is really, really important not to tell the story. Because if you don't know what the data is about, you don't understand the data, you don't understand if the data is coming from reliable sources, where the data is coming from, right? Then you are not going to tell the right story to the end audience, right? So that's the main thing. So as we talked about in this video, is we just talked about the introduction of what data storytelling is. So let me just conclude this with these key. So let me just conclude this again. So we'll be talking about what we talked about in this video. As you know, we just talked about what data storytelling is. Okay. We also talked about what data is, why data is important. Okay. Importance of data storytelling. We talked about elements of compiling, how you can just tell a data story, why the data is important. We talked about the how you should just clean the data, how you should just understand the data, and why understand data is important in order to tell the story, right? So we just talked about all those things. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed this session. So now I'll be just talking about, yeah, sorry. Okay, so I'll be just sharing my screen, uh, and I'll be just talking about our course. So I'll be talking about Geeks for Geeks machine learning and data science program, where you are going to understand different kinds of things, where you will be just understanding the machine learning and data science. So as you might already, I hope my screen is visible. Okay, cool. Okay, so now I'll be just talking about this course, which, as you might already know, that machine learning and data science, these are really, really emerging fields nowadays. As you might have already seen, Chat GPT and other things around. So, if you want to be an expert in the AI, if you want to be expert in machine learning, Geeks for Geeks has a complete machine learning and data science course, science program, which you can log in now, and you can just understand different concepts there. You can just try to understand certain things. The link is in the description, so you can just go ahead and click on that link to join this course and understand what machine learning is all about. And then you can just create beautiful things like Chat GPT itself, and you can also analyze different kinds of data. You can also create this data story thing that we talk about, because as a data science engineer, you would be able to use those things. Thank you. So I think that was it from me.
So that was really a great and comprehensive session, Sayed, I must say. And all those slides, I hope, just like me, the way I was listening to it, and I hope all the people in the like audience, we had a good amount of audience. I hope they have, like processed the session a lot, and they have gotten some useful insights from this session. For the audience, this is a sort of session like they are going to go through and they are going to work with further.
Mhm.
And you have also talked about the course that we provide here at Geeks for Geeks. Uh, he has already told you about all the importance, right? To the audience, the Sayyid has already comprehensively told how important it is to present the data in a way, in a manner that everyone can understand it. Only then it would make sense of analyzing it, right? So the session was comprehensive and useful for everyone. I hope the same way that I'm feeling, you have also felt it. We here at Geeks for Geeks, for this whole month of Geek-O-Lympics, we are coming up with such sessions. So please be interactive and stay with us. Syed has taken this session today. We might be having more sessions with Syed along with this journey. And thank you so much, Syed, for handling the audience today and for presenting them with such knowledge. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Syed. For the audience, I hope you have enjoyed the session. We'll be ending the session now, but stay with us for this whole month of July. We are coming up daily with new sessions, new quizzes, new prizes, and even some giveaways. So keep a track of it, be interactive, and don't miss those prizes. Thank you so much.